She looked him up and down, saw the simple uniform and whispered, "People like you shouldn't be flying first class." What she didn't know was that quiet man, with calloused hands, carried a story that would change her life forever. And when the truth came out, it was already too late. The Sao Paulo, New York flight was packed that Tuesday morning. Samuel adjusted the old backpack on his shoulder and checked his boarding pass one more time. First class, seat 2A. He still couldn't believe it. After years of saving every penny, he could finally travel with dignity. He wore the only suit he owned, bought 10 years ago in a clearance sale. His hands, marked by decades of hard work, trembled slightly as he walked down the airplane aisle. Samuel was an industrial mechanic, black, 58 years old. His whole life had been invisible to the world. "Excuse me? I think there's a mistake," a sharp voice echoed behind him. Veronica Almeida was the kind of woman who could command a boardroom with a single glance. Executive at a multinational company, 45 years old, used to having everything under control. Her Louboutin shoes shone as brightly as the diamonds in her ears. "Are you sure this is your seat?" she asked, pointing to the seat next to his. Samuel showed the boarding pass. "Seat 2A, yes ma'am." "How strange," Veronica murmured, but loud enough for other passengers to hear. Must have been some kind of special promotion. The flight attendant approached. "Is there a problem here?" "No, no problem at all," Samuel answered quietly, putting the card away. But Veronica wasn't satisfied. During the entire takeoff, she made a point of showing her discomfort. She pulled her purse away whenever he moved, made disapproving faces, whispered comments to the friend traveling with her. "They really should be more selective with these promotions," she said, pretending to be on the phone. "Anyone can sit in first class these days." Samuel pretended not to hear. He opened a book, Nelson Mandela's biography, and immersed himself in it. It was his defense mechanism, always had been. "He's even reading a book," Veronica commented to her friend. "Must be trying to impress someone." The hours passed like silent torture. Every move Samuel made was watched, judged. When he asked for water, Veronica sighed loudly. When he went to the restroom, she made comments about some people not knowing how to behave in sophisticated environments. Samuel knew that look, the same one he got when he entered expensive stores to buy gifts for his grandkids, the same one he faced in restaurants when he arrived still in his work uniform. It was the look that said, "You don't belong here." But something was different this time, a deep sadness he couldn't explain. Maybe because, at 58, he still hoped the world had changed, that his dignity would be recognized regardless of the clothes he wore or the job he did. "I hope you enjoyed the experience," Veronica said while exiting the plane, clearly directing the comment at Samuel. Because places like this aren't for just anyone. Samuel remained silent, as always, grabbed his backpack and headed for the exit. He didn't know that, in the next few hours, Veronica's world would completely collapse, and that she would spend the rest of her life regretting every word spoken on that flight. Samuel's story wasn't just about a simple man being humiliated on a plane. It was about decades of invisibility, about a society that judges by appearances, and about how the truth, when it finally appears, can be devastating for those who choose arrogance over humanity. What Veronica didn't imagine was that the man with calloused hands carried a secret that would forever change her perspective on meritocracy, dignity, and justice. Samuel walked through JFK Airport carrying more than an old backpack. He carried 58 years of small humiliations that had accumulated like invisible scars on his soul. Every look of disdain, every "excuse me" said with contempt, every door that didn't open because of the color of his skin or the simplicity of his clothes. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was Samuel Pereira dos Santos, son of Dona Maria, a woman who cleaned houses for 40 years so he could study. He was the father of 3 children who all graduated from university because he worked 3 jobs. He was the grandfather of 5 grandchildren who called him Hero Grandpa without knowing why. While waiting for a taxi, Samuel remembered the reason for that trip. 3 months ago, he got a phone call that changed everything. "Mr. Samuel, this is Morrison and Associates law firm from New York. You need to come to the United States as soon as possible. It's about an inheritance." At first, he thought it was a scam, but the documents arrived by mail, all notarized. His uncle Benedito, his mother's brother, had died. A man who had emigrated to the United States in the 60s, and whom the family had lost contact with decades ago. Samuel used all the savings of a lifetime to buy that first-class ticket. Not for luxury, but because it was the only seat available on the flight. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip, a chance to uncover the lost story of his family. Across the city, Veronica was arriving at her Manhattan apartment, still laughing about the exotic experience of the flight. She called her assistant, "Cancel everything for tomorrow morning. I need to recover from this traumatic trip. You wouldn't believe the kind of people flying first class these days." Veronica didn't know her life was about to fall apart. At that very moment, auditors at the company where she worked were discovering a corruption scheme that directly implicated her. Fraudulent contracts, bribes, misappropriation of funds meant for social projects. Everything was coming to light. Meanwhile, Samuel entered the law firm. The lawyer, an older man with graying hair, welcomed him with a sincere smile. "Mr. Samuel, it's an honor to meet you. Your uncle spoke a lot about you. What do you mean? We lost contact over 30 years ago. He always knew about you. He followed your entire life. Your children's graduations, your grandchildren's births, your promotions at work. Benedito was very proud. Samuel couldn't believe it. The uncle the family thought was lost had always been present, even from afar. He left something for you, the lawyer continued, handing him a folder and a letter. With trembling hands, Samuel opened the yellowed envelope. My dear nephew, if you're reading this, it means we've finally reconnected. I spent 40 years building something here, but my heart was always in Brazil, with you all. I built an empire in the United States, but the true wealth was knowing that you became the man of integrity I always knew you would be. Everything I achieved here is now yours. Use it with the same dignity I saw you carry all your life, even when the world insisted on not seeing you. Tears rolled down Samuel's face. Benedito hadn't just prospered in the United States. He had become a legend, owner of one of the country's biggest construction companies, responsible for building hospitals, schools, community centers, a man who used his fortune to change lives. And now, all of it belonged to Samuel. The simple man who had been humiliated on the plane just a few hours earlier was, in fact, the new owner of a multi-million-dollar empire. While Samuel processed the news, Veronica received a phone call that froze her blood. Ms. Almeida, this is the compliance department. You need to come to the office immediately. There are some irregularities we need to clarify. Her life of luxury and arrogance was coming to an end. The schemes she used to maintain her status were being exposed one by one. And the worst part? She still didn't know that the man she had scorned on the plane was about to become one of the most influential people in New York. The irony of fate was just beginning. 3 days later, the first bomb exploded. Veronica was at the federal police station, handcuffed, while agents ransacked her luxury apartment. Newspapers splashed headlines about the biggest corporate corruption scandal in recent years. Brazilian executive embezzles millions from social projects, screamed the front page of the New York Times. Across the city, Samuel was wearing a new suit, the first he had ever bought from a real store, not a clearance rack. The lawyer had insisted he needed to present himself properly to officially take over his uncle's businesses. Mr. Samuel, said the accountant from Benedito Santos Corporation, you didn't just inherit companies. You inherited a legacy. Your uncle built 47 schools in underprivileged communities, 12 hospitals, and funded more than 3,000 scholarships. He always said that true wealth was about lifting others up. Samuel stared at the documents in disbelief. That uncle the family thought had been lost to America had become one of the country's greatest philanthropists. There's one more thing, the lawyer continued. Benedito left specific instructions. If you ever felt disrespected or humiliated because of your origins or appearance, you should use these resources to educate those people about human dignity. As if it were a sign from the universe, the phone rang. It was the JFK airport director. Mr. Samuel? We have a delicate situation. A passenger from your flight is being investigated by the FBI. During the investigation, she mentioned an incident on the plane. We need to clarify a few facts. At that moment, Samuel understood. The universe was offering an opportunity for poetic justice. Veronica, meanwhile, was losing everything. The apartment, the luxury car, the jewelry, the job. Worse than the material loss was the public humiliation. The woman who had always judged others by their appearance was now being judged by the whole society. The second bomb exploded when she found out who Samuel really was. Veronica Almeida, a CNN reporter, approached her outside the courthouse. Is it true that you humiliated Samuel Pereira dos Santos during a flight to New York? Who? I don't know who you're talking about. The new owner of the Benedito Santos Corporation, one of the largest fortunes in the United States. He's the black man you said didn't belong in first class during the flight. Veronica's blood ran cold. The color drained from her face. This can't be true. But it was. And the worst was yet to come. Samuel had decided to use his new position for something Benedito had always dreamed of, creating a program to educate people about prejudice and human dignity. And who better to be the first case study than Veronica herself? The third bomb was devastating. Samuel held a press conference. Dressed simply, as always, he spoke with the humility he never lost. My name is Samuel Pereira dos Santos. 3 days ago, I was just a 58-year-old mechanic who was humiliated on a plane by a woman who decided I didn't deserve to be there. Today, I found out I am the heir to a fortune my uncle built to transform lives. The journalists were spellbound. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to teach. That woman who judged me by my appearance is now facing her own judgment. The difference is, she will be judged for her actions, not for her color or social class. Samuel announced he would create the Benedito Santos Foundation for Human Dignity. The first project would be a documentary about prejudice, and Veronica would be invited to participate, not as a villain, but as an example of transformation. I offered her a chance to work at the foundation, to use her experience to teach others about the dangers of prejudice, to turn her pain into purpose. Veronica watched the press conference from home, shattered. The man she had humiliated was offering her redemption when he could have offered vengeance. In that moment, she understood the difference between wealth and dignity. Samuel had always had one. She had always chased the other. And now, ironically, she was the one in need of the second chance she had never given anyone. The fourth bomb would be the most powerful of all. Samuel wouldn't just forgive Veronica. He would help transform her into the person she never knew she could be. 6 months later, Veronica stood before a packed auditorium, not as the arrogant executive she once was, but as a broken, rebuilt, and transformed woman. "My name is Veronica Almeida," her voice trembled, "and I need to tell you about the day my soul died and was reborn." In the front row, Samuel watched her with a quiet smile. He had fulfilled the promise made to Uncle Benedito, to turn pain into teaching, humiliation into humanity. In the past months, Veronica had gone through the most difficult process of her life. She lost everything materially, but gained something she never possessed: awareness. Samuel hadn't just offered her a job at the foundation, he had offered therapy, support, and above all, a mirror to see who she truly was. "For years, I judged people by their appearance," Veronica continued. "I believed my expensive clothes, my executive title, my Manhattan apartment made me superior. I was blind to the true wealth, human dignity." The audience was captivated. Business people, students, activists, all listening to the testimony of a woman who had hit rock bottom and found redemption. "On the flight to New York, I humiliated a 58-year-old man. I said he didn't belong in first class. What I didn't know was that he belonged to something much greater. He belonged to the category of dignified human beings, something I had forgotten existed." Samuel stood up and walked to the stage. The crowd applauded for 5 straight minutes. "Veronica taught me something essential," Samuel said into the microphone. "She showed me that true wealth isn't in forgiving those who hurt us. It's in helping that person discover who they really can be." Tears streamed down Veronica's face. In the past months, she had worked in favelas, helped underprivileged families, listened to stories from people she had always ignored. Each day was a brick in the rebuilding of her humanity. "Samuel didn't just inherit a fortune," Veronica told the audience. "He inherited the wisdom to turn wounds into healing, and he offered me the chance to do the same." The emotional climax came when Samuel revealed the foundation's final project. The Benedito Santos Foundation will build 100 schools in the next 5 years. And Veronica will be responsible for selecting the communities that need them most. Not as punishment, but as purpose. The audience erupted in applause. Veronica couldn't stop crying. "I spent my whole life chasing status," she said. "Samuel showed me that true elevation comes from lifting others." But Samuel had saved the most powerful surprise for last. "There's something Veronica doesn't know," he announced. "My Uncle Benedito left a specific letter for situations like the one we experienced on the plane. He wrote, 'If you ever meet someone who judges you by your appearance, remember that this person is lost, and lost people need to be found, not punished.'" Samuel looked directly at Veronica. "Benedito allocated a specific portion of the inheritance for cases like this. Veronica will receive a $1 million donation, not for herself, but to manage on behalf of the people she has now learned to see." Veronica collapsed to her knees on stage. The entire room rose in a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. In that moment, she understood the difference between justice and revenge. Samuel could have destroyed her, humiliated her publicly, used his fortune to crush her. Instead, he rebuilt her. "Do you know what the real miracle was?" Samuel said into the microphone. "It wasn't inheriting a fortune. It was discovering that the wealth had always been inside me, and that Veronica had that wealth too. She just needed to be reminded." The transformation was complete. The woman who had despised a man because of his appearance would now dedicate the rest of her life to recognizing the dignity in the invisible. Samuel had proven that true wealth isn't in what you have, but in what you do with what you have, and that the greatest revenge against prejudice is to turn it into love. 2 years later, the story of Samuel and Veronica had become a global legend. Veronica stood in a favela in São Paulo, overseeing the construction of the 15th school of the Benedito Santos Foundation. Her hands, once manicured for executive meetings, now bore the calluses of community work. Her eyes, which once judged, now truly saw. "Miss Veronica," an 8-year-old child tugged at her skirt. "Is it true you used to be mean before you met Mr. Samuel?" Veronica smiled, a real smile, not the calculated one she used in corporations. "I wasn't mean, sweetheart. I was lost, very lost. And when you're lost, sometimes you hurt other people without even realizing it. And now you're not lost anymore. Now I know the way, and the way is to help other people find theirs." Across the ocean, Samuel was in New York, in his modest office at the foundation. The walls weren't decorated with diplomas or awards, but with photos of the communities transformed by the projects. On his desk, one special photo. He and Veronica inaugurating the first school, both covered in paint and smiling. The phone rang. It was her. "Samuel, I need to tell you something. Today we opened the school in Heliopolis. Guess who was there? the flight attendant from our flight. She recognized our story and said she'd never again allow passengers to be treated disrespectfully on her watch. See how stories spread? Samuel laughed. My uncle always said kindness is contagious. It takes time to spread, but when it does, it's unstoppable. Veronica had become the most respected voice on personal transformation and fighting prejudice. She wrote a book called The Man on the Plane: How a Stranger's Humility Saved My Soul. All profits were donated to the foundation. Samuel, there's something I never asked you, Veronica said. Why did you forgive me? Why didn't you destroy me when you had the chance? Samuel was silent for a moment. You know, Veronica, my mother used to clean houses for people like the person you used to be. She would come home and tell me about the humiliation she suffered. But do you know what she always said? Little Samuel, people who humiliate others are the ones most deeply hurt. One day, someone will need to heal them. Your mother was a wise woman. She was. And I grew up believing that everyone deserves a second chance, even those who never gave anyone a first. Their call was interrupted by a conference line. It was the mayor of Detroit, wanting to implement the foundation's project in the city. The story of Samuel and Veronica had inspired governments, companies, and millions of people around the world. The video of her speech at the auditorium had over 50 million views. Every day, comments arrived from people saying the story had made them reflect on their own prejudices. What moves me the most, Veronica said in her last interview with CNN, is that Samuel didn't change after discovering he was rich. He remained the same humble person, wearing simple clothes, treating everyone with respect. Wealth didn't transform him because he was already rich in dignity. Samuel, watching the interview, smiled. On his lap, he held a letter that had arrived that morning. It was from a woman in Japan. Mr. Samuel, my 12-year-old daughter watched the video of your story. She asked me, Mom, have I ever been prejudiced? We talked for hours. She decided she wants to work with underprivileged people when she grows up. A 12-year-old child on the other side of the world changed because of you. These letters arrived every day, from executives rethinking their behavior, from parents teaching tolerance to their children, from young people deciding to dedicate their lives to social service. At the end of the day, Samuel looked out the office window. New York glowed with its lights, but his thoughts were in Brazil. Next week, he would return to inaugurate 3 more schools. Veronica would be there, as always. He picked up the phone and called her one last time. Veronica, thank you. For what? For giving me the chance to discover who I really am. Not just an heir or a philanthropist, but someone capable of turning pain into healing. Thank you, Samuel, for showing me it's never too late to start over. The call ended, but the story continued. In every school built, in every life transformed, in every person who chose to see dignity in others, Samuel had inherited much more than money. He had inherited the responsibility of being a mirror of humanity. And Veronica had discovered that true wealth isn't in what you have, but in what you become when you choose to be better. The story of a man despised on a plane had become proof that redemption is possible, that love conquers prejudice, and that sometimes angels appear dressed as mechanics, carrying old backpacks and enormous hearts. Did this story touch your heart? If you believe dignity has no color, social class, or profession, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that change lives and help us build a fairer world. And don't miss the next video appearing on your screen right now. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that every human being deserves respect. Let's spread dignity together.